Hey, good morning, Sushant. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you.
So, yes, we are live on our Living My Promise page. Yeah. And so, as everyone, all our viewers know that we do this live session every Saturday. We bring in one of our promises or someone who's prominent in the space of philanthropy or social sector to talk to our audience. I hope today will be a wonderful and fantastic session for the audience here. We have with us Mr. T V Srinivasan. He's a retired executive coach. Sorry, he's an executive coach. He's a retired corporate professional. He's also a Rotarian or a Rotary Club member in Bangalore, and he's a community service volunteer. TV Srinivasan has spent most of his life, working life in Japan and other Southeast Asian countries. Sir, would you like to tell us something about yourself?
Hey, before we go too far, Sushant, I want to make a statement here. This is the first time I'm doing something as an interview in a long time, and especially live. So if I'm nervous or if I ramble along, I want you to stop me. And yeah, because I don't want to waste the time of people who might have, logged in to hear me speak. So that's a qualifier statement. So tell me about myself. I think as you introduced, I was born in Delhi. I studied in India, and somewhere when I was probably 35, the company I worked for transferred me out of India to Singapore. Was supposed to be a 3-4 year assignment, ended up being 8 or 9 years, and then from there, instead of returning to India, I got posted to Japan. So I spent about 27 years from 1981 to 2008 in Asia Pacific. So Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Tokyo were places where I lived and worked from. And then I returned to India in 2008. So I retired from DuPont, but then I didn't retire from working or so. So that's my family is it's a small family. I have a daughter. We have my father-in-law staying with us. He's 99 this year.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah. So, for viewers who are not aware of Living My Promise, let me introduce Living My Promise. Living My Promise is an initiative for ordinary Indians with a net worth of above 1 crore who can come forward to pledge 50% of their wealth for philanthropic causes, either in their lifetime or in their wills. So far, we have 54 Indians, wonderful Indians from all across the country who have, signed up to the Living My Promise pledge. This is a moral commitment. This is not an NGO. It's a group of community of givers who are giving back to the society for various causes. If you're interested, please go on to www.livingmypromise.org website. Check out our promises and the criteria that we have for you to join. Thank you, sir. How is life during lockdown?
I feel we're very blessed. Life for me or for my family has really not been destroyed or affected as much as it has for a lot of other people. So we're just fortunate. My work goes on because I do a lot of my work on the phone. We live in a community where there happens to be a store for groceries and others, and that has been taken care of by the association. And fortunately, we've all been safe and staying healthy. So lockdown has not affected me as much as it's affected maybe many other families.
Yeah. So, welcome audience. I hope you're all ready. I'll start asking questions to Mr. TV Srinivasan. If at any point of time, if you have any questions that you want TV Srinivasan to answer, please post them in the comment section on the Living My Promise page. So, sir, you spend most of your life working in one of the most developed and organized countries like Singapore and Japan. Why did you come back to India?
That's easy. Home is home is home. Home is India, and my permanent address never changes. It is somewhere in India. So, and I think maybe the other this would be that since, as I said, when we spent time outside, it was mostly in Asia. Um, we were always a guest. We always saw our stay there as being a guest, and so you didn't want to overstay your welcome.
Okay, but how do you think life is different when compared with living in countries like Japan and India?
Life is very different, and again, it depends on what you compare to. So I guess moving from Tokyo to Bangalore is like night and day especially for my wife. She still grapples with it. She wishes that someday we could be back in Japan, I guess. But yeah, so it's very different. However, the circumstance outside is what it is. How you react to it or how you respond to it is in your control. So yeah, once we decide that home is here and this is where I'd come to retire, you make adjustments, and you're thankful for the good times, and you deal with and make the times that you live today good again. So.
Yes. Yeah. So usually life in retirement is, laid back for a lot of senior citizens. But you took the Living My Promise pledge, and you're also actively managing your portfolio and philanthropy. Tell us a little bit about how you plan for this.
How did I plan for this? Well, I think there are two questions there, right? I mean, about what is retirement. So for me, I guess very early in life, when I was 24 and I was in California at that time for a training program. I was there, and this gentleman who was my trainer on Friday, the second week on Friday, told me that there's a farewell party this afternoon for me, and I'm retiring from the company. And I said, so what are you going to do? And he said, I just bought a plane. I'm going to learn to fly. He was 55 years old. My father was 60, and I know my father retired at the age of 55 or 58. So it changed my belief at that time, when you believe that, retirement means when you get to 55 and after that you don't do something. That was the first instance. And then later on, and when I was in Japan and in Taiwan, my clients or my customers, their owners and others whom I was maybe interacting, were in their 70s or 80s and leading a full active life, running a company, playing golf, having good dinners, whatever, enjoying life. So I figured at that time that life doesn't end at, when I retire. And it's really a transition. It's not a transformation. You don't go from working to, stop working. So that was the first thing. Then the second thing was at that time, actually, I took the pledge. It wasn't public at that time. It was just within my family, or, maybe some people knew about it, which is that I would spend 30% of my time in community service, 30% of my time staying connected with the world. So I would work, which is where the executive coaching came in, and 30% of the time for my family. I have elder sisters, I have uncles, aunts, others who I said I could probably devote some time to help them. So it was so for me it's a transition, and so it was clear to me when I was doing it that this is what I wanted to do going forward. I also thought that if I live up to the 90s, then I've got 25 years of probably good life ahead of me. So it would be terrible if I wasted my time sitting at home and watching television or and of course I was not going to go into the forest and meditate. So this seemed the right thing to do.
So how do you think is it different? The transition right now, is it far different, or how is it different?
No, actually, it's different is it different? It's far different, because when you're working and when before, it's a full-time job, right? If you're leading a business or managing a business, whatever, it's not an 8 to 5 kind of a work. It's a full-time occupation. So here, there's a lot more freedom on how you spend your time, where you spend your time. But the big difference for me is the satisfaction you get out of doing what you do, where you can see the impact of your actions or your work versus where you work in a large corporation, where sometimes it's really not clear what is the impact that you had on the people that you work.
Yeah, yeah. You have taken the Living My Promise pledge. How are you going about your philanthropic activities?
Good question. So how am I going about it? So I think you mentioned, so I'm a Rotarian. So Rotary, I mean, for those who may not be aware, Rotary and Rotary International, Lions International are probably the world's largest community service-based organizations. And Rotary teaches you a lot of things. So one of the things Rotary teaches you is that you involve people through projects. So and you bring people with different skills and professions to that space. So I do three things, right? So one is through Rotary, which is where my community serves. The other is I select NGOs based on recommendations or based on my interactions, and they may come through Rotary or they may come through friends and family that I'm introduced to NGOs. And the third is I do my own, in cases where I may donate to an individual cause or an association or a group, something. So that's how I'm going about it. I don't know if I answered your question, Sushant, but that's how I'm going about giving.
Yeah. There are several individuals in your age group who have made some modest wealth and whose children are well settled. How do you think they can engage in philanthropy?
How can they engage in philanthropy? I think the starting point, first of all, I'm not assuming. I think it means this. In my interactions, everybody is doing something. I mean, it's not like people in my, people like me, middle class or are not like they're not doing anything. But what they might be doing is what one would call mostly donations. So it is one, kind of it's for the short term. It's not with a long-term view of transforming society or transforming an individual's life. So that's probably what people are doing. But how can they get engaged? So I think they can get engaged if they took this long view, okay, of what is it that I do to actually impact the lives of many or the lives of few, but impact their lives in a way that it transforms them. So that's, I think, the first thing. Then if there is a will to give, then I'm sure they'll find ways to do it.
Yeah. But I think, people need more than, just will to kind of, figure this out. Can you give them something more practical on how to go about?
How to go about it. Okay, so let me put it in the three buckets like I told you. So Rotary. So if you want to give and you're not really sure how to go about it, in your town or city, there's in your vicinity, there will be a Rotary club or a Lions club or some other charitable organization that's operating. And so if you're uncomfortable about, just giving it and not knowing what's happening with it, since those clubs, their projects are in the vicinity of the club, you will be able to actually donate to a cause and maybe go and see for yourself how it's being used. So for example, in my club, we run a crash. We do, heart screening camps in association with an NGO, and I'll talk about that. So you can get involved that way. So if you take that route, so these are established organizations that are devoted to community service. So you bring yourself to it. So maybe here it's important to also say something. It's not just about money. right? Giving is about everything that you have. So you have time and you have talent, which is, your skills and ability. And the third part is money. So yes, to a great extent, philanthropy, means giving your treasure, but it also, you can be a philanthropist if you don't have that much treasure to give, you can give your time and you can give your talent to a cause, right? So that's how I would define giving rather than just about money. So yes, living my promise pledges about greater than 50% of your wealth, but as we know, most of our promises are not just giving their wealth; they are giving their time and their talent to the cause, right? So that's one way to get started. If you feel you don't have, you're not comfortable with parting with your treasure, sharing with your treasure, then start sharing time and start sharing your talent, and then it'll probably get you comfortable to support that organization with your treasure too. So that's the Rotary way. So the NGO way. So for me, in the initial, how did I get started? It started, if I recall correctly, I was in Japan. Shankara Netralaya. Dr. Shankar was visiting Tokyo, happened to get together with the Indian community. He talked about what they do and how, what he believed could be done. And I realized what a great work they were doing. So it was easy to write a check at that time. Then other NGOs came to my attention through friends. They would talk to me saying, hey, listen, when I would ask them, what can I do? Well, they would usually suggest something. So maybe as an example, I'll give you how my giving started and how it increased. So Aishwarya Trust is an organization that does addresses congenital heart disease in children. So one of my relatives actually mentioned about it, saying this lady Chitra Vishwanathan is set up this NGO, and the cost of one operation for a child that has CHD is 75,000 rupees. So I started with that, paying for one child, and then I increased it to paying for maybe 2 children or 3 children, and then I got talking to Chitra one day, and she said, I want to actually expand this into Bangalore. Most of their activities were Tamil Nadu based. So when that happened, so and I was a Rotarian at the time, so I brought the Rotary Club and Aishwarya Trust together, and the Fortis Hospital became a partner. So the club funded the purchase of an ultrasound machine. Aishwarya Trust took the responsibility for the doctors and getting connected to the hospital, Fortis Hospital at that time. And so today we run these camps where you screen children, and then when you identify a child, that child is taken forward with the help of Fortis Hospital to get the surgery done to correct the defect. And so the child will now live a normal life. So if you take, so that's how the connection to an NGO takes place. You get connected. So that's what happened to me. So my passion was for education initially, and then children's health became an adjacent space. When you dealt with children, you found that if they because they were poor or because they were needy, their health was as much an important thing to address. So that got me there, and now I'm expanding to youth engagement or youth. So that's the NGO part. And the last part is I think these individuals today, there are, whether it's so this would be more in my donation space, at the moment. Like right now for COVID, the community was going to provide food to some a small community that was outside our complex. So you just contribute. That's more like a one-time contribution. Or one of my I get a service. I get a driver service when I need a car, when I don't want to drive. And so when this happened, he's not an Ola driver. He's just a driver who you hired by the hour. And suddenly he lost his list. So, he didn't ask, but I felt that he would probably benefit because I knew he had 2 daughters who were in school. And so it was, so anyway, so those kinds of things happen, once you decide you're going to, and you have the money to support people. So in this case, in the individual case, it's not about time or talent, it's just treasure. In the case of NGO, it can be just treasure, or it can be treasure, time, and talent, or it can be just treasure and time. And in the case of the Rotary, you try to give all 3.
Yeah. Most people in your age, might have apprehensions about unforeseen medical expenses, especially in times like COVID, right?
Yeah.
And how did you practically plan for those contingencies before committing to philanthropy? I mean, people would feel a lot of insecurity and might not want to part with their treasure that you've been speaking of.
Yeah.
Apprehensions. So how did you kind of plan for those contingencies? How did you kind of overcome those apprehensions that you had?
It's a good, interesting question. So when you work in a corporation or you work in business, you come across the need to have, do a scenario planning, right? So because you cannot, so maybe I should say, so there's a book that I picked up on one of my trips. It's called The Art of the Long View. And basically what this short says in The Art of the Long View is you can't predict the future accurately. Nobody can. But if you can say that whatever the future, I've prepared for it, then you're in a good shape. And you need to just know about so what you would look at. So take so this is in terms of scenario planning for my life or for the family, right? So given the advances in medicine, stem cell therapy, various things, and knowing that longevity has been increasing over the years. So when I was born, probably the longevity for Indian male was probably 60 years or something, and by the time I was 40 or something, that number had moved up by probably another 5 or 10 years, and I'm sure now it's even higher. One of the scenarios is I might live to 120. So when I retire, am I just going to think about it as 10 years more to go, or do I think about it as, hey, almost another lifetime, I have in front of me? The other scenario is, hey, it's the worst case, right? The case is, you get hit by a car, or you're in a plane and the plane goes down, right? So in that case, you don't know when it is, but it could happen anytime, right? So that's not a long-term. So somewhere in the middle is the third one. So I figured that, given my health and our family's health, and given maybe the genes, that we'll probably live to the 90s. So I need to think about 25 years when I retired, number one. Number two, from my business, I learned that there are risks in every scenario, and what it is about, how do you negate those risks? So how do you when that happens, how do you manage? So if you're given it thought, So if you talk about medical emergency, which is probably one of the biggest items that people worry about how, what it will cost for medical. So if you're in India, that your medical expenses are not the same as if you are in the US. So if I was in Japan or US and I was retiring there, you would need a lot more money to cater for your medical. But you have insurance. So you can take insurance, and yes, it's if it happens, it's there to give you. And if it happens when much later in life, so there my daughter knows, and while I have not put together a living will, but really she knows, and that it will be a case of, what is it called, DRD, is it, or something? DNR, do not resuscitate. so yes, things could go wrong, but that I'm not worried about it at this point.
Okay.
But so that's one part. The other part is that maybe this came to me as I work on my coaching side of the work, which is, and I think these people talk about mindset, right? It's what you believe.
Yeah.
So if you believe that you don't have enough, or you'll run out of money, then you behave a certain way, right?
Mm-hmm.
You worry about it all the time probably, and you try to save and be careful. But if you believe that there's plenty and that it's really not, money that, as I think as Steve Jobs said, he spent all his time making lots of money, and then finally that hospital bed, when he realized this is the most expensive bed, all that money does not do you anything.
Yeah.
So I think by this to that is, yes, it could happen. If it happens, so be it. I'm prepared. And if it doesn't happen, great, because then the path that I've chosen to part with or share with my fortune is good, also the good.
Yeah, yeah. So, like most people would do, why not leave behind wealth for your children, or simply secure future generations of your lineage? Why give back to society?
Yeah. So I think that it comes, first of all, I have a small family, but yeah, you can talk about, generations for the, plan for the next several generations. But, so it's not in my control to plan for them. They will make their own plans. And secondly, it's not like they'll have nothing, but it's like you don't need more than what you need. But maybe here, in my particular case, I'm very fortunate. My daughter, when she was 12, I think she told Sujata when she took her out shopping and bought her a very nice dress. She said, "Amma, don't do this. I don't think I will lead the kind of life where I will need such expensive clothes." And for that, she graduated from college, and her life has been in social development. And so she, in fact, is now helping me with making sure that that we can increase the impact of the family's giving. And is a very close ally. So whether I give it to her, I know it will again go into the same this. She will spend it on charity or on philanthropy. She's not going to go and buy herself a car or something else. So yeah, I think one can. So I think of course, if you listen to Gates and other people, you want to give your children the chance for them to be successful and to get the pleasure out of earning their own money or whatever is the benchmark they set for themselves.
Yeah, yeah. So you have personally gone through some organizations, you worked with some organizations and found them and supported them. But there is this great misconception or there is this perception in the society that that money might be misused by NGOs, or a donor might get cheated. How do you know that your money is giving the desired impact you wish to see, and it is going for the causes? How do you kind of plan for this, or how do you know this?
Yeah. So first of all, it's not a black and white situation, right? So it's not like all NGOs or wherever you put your money is going to be used exactly the way you thought they were going to use it or you wanted them to use it. On the other hand, it's not like all of them are going to misuse it or not use it. So I think first of all, so if and maybe that's why I'll come back to, if you have a will to give, this should not be a barrier. You can identify NGOs, and like in your financial they tell you about diversify. So if you're concerned about it, go and pick 10 NGOs in the same space rather than give it all to one NGO. 9 out of 10 will probably do a good job of using that money. 1 out of 10 might not, but rather than second guess or think that this could happen and therefore worry about it, if you know that money will still be spent for somebody's benefit versus for nobody's benefit. And maybe this reminds me of what Irfan Razak, Prestige Constructions in Bangalore, who's also a Rotarian, and he was being felicitated for giving $250,000 to Rotary International. And in his speech, he answered it this way. He said, "Listen, you come into this world with nothing. When you leave this world, you're wrapped in one piece of cloth. You can't take any of it away with you."
Yeah.
So, so it's, so this thing about, so NGOs is a channel, right?
Yeah.
Why you do it is because you believe that you can, you want to share your fortune or your good fortune with a lot more people than just your family, right? The family can afford to share. So if you have that, so that's the starting point. That's the why. Then what you do is, like whether it's your time or whether it's your money or whether it's your talent, and that's the what part of it. What you would give. And in my case, it was time allocation. The starting point was time allocation. I said 30% of my time will go in staying connected with business and world, which is where my executive coaching comes in. 30% of my time is for my family, and 30% of it is for community service. Then how do you do it? I got connected with Rotary. I identified NGOs through friends and family. And of course, there's plenty of mails and others that come to you around information. So that's my this of take on how to do this.
Yeah. But you had access to networks, people who could give you referrals, right? How do you suggest someone who doesn't have that luxury of somebody giving a referral of a organization? What do you suggest? How do they kind of find?
Okay, so first of all, it's yes, I had the network because I trusted them, in terms of making recommendations. That's all. But if you take an portal or an organization like Give India, right? You have this week that they run every year, right? And then if you go to the Give India, you choose a cause. They have already done the work of whether you call it due diligence or whatever about NGOs, right? So that is it. And as I mentioned, if people know that Rotary and Lions Club and maybe even Akshay Patra, they built up a reputation of doing good. So there is an organization nearby. So if you really want to go, just give it somewhere. But so the difference for me between giving it to Akshay Patra and some other organization in the same space is I don't know why the money really does. Akshay Patra has plenty of money; they do a great job. But if there's a smaller organization that's actually taking care of smaller schools in rural areas where Akshay Patra is not able to go with their big trucks, that to me is something that I can probably have a bigger impact. My contribution there. So first of all, this is really not a problem. All of us have resources, but much more than what we think we have. And you just have to open that up, whether it's your brothers and sisters whose network you can get into, or whether it's your classmates from school, So if you went to college, whether your classmates from college, I mean, we all have actually a much bigger network that we can influence than probably we think.
Yeah. For viewers who are watching this live session, if you have any questions for TV Srinivasan, please post them in the comment section on this live video section on the Living My Promise page. Sir, you're saying there are a lot of networks that we can tap into, people can do more. Do you see Rotarians becoming Living My Promise pledgees? Because almost all Rotarians are giving some amount of percent of their income. How do you see them becoming potential promises for Living My Promise pledge?
Again, Rotarians are professionals like other professionals. So yes, they happen to be members of Rotary clubs, so they're Rotarians. Many of them are probably doing. I know many of them are doing because. So take this completely different. If I run a foundation, right? If I actually set up an NGO, like we had the Guptas, right? Gunj. A couple of sessions ago, we had Guptas talk about their life is that foundation. So it's not 50%, 60%, whatever. It's entire wealth going there. So Rotarians, there are many Rotarians who have their own NGOs, and Rotarians, as I said, become Rotarians or they are very active because that is what Rotary clubs are there for. It's about community service. So whether they will make a pledge is, I think, an individual decision. But I think that many Rotarians are doing it already. without a pledge.
Okay. Okay. One of the things that we always observe is, most Indians prefer donating to places of worship in the hope that it will reach their beneficiaries. Why is it difficult to donate to other NGOs when compared to religious trusts?
Is it difficult to do? I guess, okay, so you're making a assumption here that, that religious trusts or whatever religious organizations are able to raise funds better than an NGO. Probably true, but
Probably.
why is it? Why is, I mean, yeah, so again, I can only talk for myself, right? So, and so yes, my family is not, we do believe in a supreme power of God, and yes, we have a, deity at home, so we do, pray. But so I'll tell you what happened in my case. So when my father died, I was outside the country, and so if you're in Japan, there is no way. I'm the eldest son. There is not an easy way to actually perform the necessary rituals, right? My mother said, "Why don't you just feed some poor?" So whether you gave money to feed the poor or you went and fed the poor, so it was more about so maybe my mother. I should give credit to my mother. She, it is not like you need to go and give it to God because then God will take care of you. You do what is right, and to help. So that's what I believe. But maybe on the other hand, I'll say so. I have given to a cause, which is a religious trust, where I know that they're running schools and they're running hospitals and stuff. So the money I'm giving is not for for a puja for my family's a good health or whatever, but it's really for the good work they are doing in around the community. So I think it should some people yes would rather spend money on a havan or a big whatever, and but that's how they feel good. If they feel that's ultimately what everybody wants, right? You want to feel good. So if they feel good by giving there, I don't have anything to say. Tell them you should do that. But hopefully they will also find that giving to an NGO, which is, as I said, doing some good work, whether it's education, whether it is safety, whether it is environment, health, I think hopefully they will also find satisfaction out of giving to it. So it'll be for the NGO to sell its unique proposition to attract those funds.
But sir, I wanted to understand from you, what is the satisfaction that you get out of philanthropy doing your activities?
How do I?
Or do you see?
I think again, the satisfaction out of actually seeing a smile on somebody's face is greater than the satisfaction you get out of your own smile. Okay, so and that's, you have to experience it. Or the satisfaction you get out of seeing a child. So in my case, so for example, there's a bridge school that was one of the first NGOs that my club got started in. And so the bridge school is, children in slums who are not able to go to the local school and who've been out of school for some time to catch up. So you see a child there, who's 6 or 7 or 8 or something, and then now today I go to to their annual function, and I see this 15-year-old or 17-year-old now actually has got into Christ College in Bangalore, and is on stage, and you can see that difference in that child's life maybe or whatever, and that gives you much greater satisfaction than probably, as I said, a one-time donation to something. So for me, I think I don't know. Don't ask me why, but it's just one of those things. I get a lot more kick out of out of helping a cause than I get out of going for dinner and spending money on myself.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask you, does philanthropy solve problems? Do you think philanthropy solves any problems out there? And what is the kind of impact that you see that we can achieve through philanthropy?
A tough question for me to answer, but as I said, and this is where again my daughter comes in to help me here. She does monitoring and evaluation, and it is all about impact assessment. And as you know, impact or outcomes take much longer to measure. So you have to go with some kind of belief that by doing this, it will have the desired outcome. You'll get some outcomes that you don't desire, but that's so. I think if you say then philanthropy will it, the answer is yes, definitely yes, because especially in a country like India where we still are what 60% poor, 40% may are not in that category anymore. But there's plenty of people, plenty of work you can do to impact lives of the poor, lives of the needy.
Yeah.
The less fortunate.
So, can you tell us about the different causes that you've been supporting, and what is the impact that you've seen out of that?
So, okay, so as I told you, this was education.
Yeah.
Right. So the impact there is and again, so there are several educational institutions that I support. It's not one, but I've seen one increase their impact on thousands of 2,000-3,000 kids today versus where they so they started 10 years ago, right? They started with a slum of 100 kids. They said I think was it 100 kids? They're probably 100. So now they impact the education of 2,000-3,000 children. Another one.
Who wouldn't go to school.
The children who go to school, right? So a different approach, but yeah. So this is where I said those kids have gone through school. So they're from out of school, they got into school. The NGO supported them through transitioning to a main school. And from the main school, some of them, and all of them who passed out of the 10th class, went on to continue studies. And these were girl children also. And also from communities where, the parents, they struggled with it. Some parents took the girls out of school saying the girls shouldn't be educated because they will, then be a problem for their husbands. So, that's what. The other educational, which also started with somewhat similar, decided to build a school. So instead of the bridge school, it started with starting kids in first 4 grades, then 6 grades, and then up to up to the 10th class today, right? So and again, so now 300-400. I think the number of children now are 450 or something, and these 450 children will go through and get out of school. They'll be at a point where they can go for skills training or whatever and can have a life versus otherwise, and so many of these children are children of today's housemaids or drivers or whatever. But their children hopefully will be able to go to a different level rather than go and work in the same house that their mothers worked. So I've seen that impact in that side. In the case of health, as I told you, if you take the work that Aishwarya Trust does with congenital heart disease, this child is weak, is looking sick, and the mother, of course, the parents are worried. And after the surgery, this child is running around, is now back in, it's not only in school, is active, and that this child is going to have a normal life. I mean, whatever the life is that we don't know, but it is definitely will live longer than would have lived if that surgery hadn't taken, if the correction hadn't taken place. So I can see the impact. So if you ask me, how have I seen it? The answer is very much so, yes. So again, so other projects that we have in Rotary also, you can see the impact that you're having on. So
Hmm. So one of our audience is asking you a question: how has Rotary changed you as a person?
um, so I think, yeah, so Rotary has enabled me to get a lot more clarity about giving. It has opened, so it has helped me actually, as I said, have more impact. For example, so take this, so the CHD that I'm very close to. So while what Chitra wanted was to run this program in Bangalore or in Karnataka to do the scanning. How is the scanning taking place? My Rotary Club members are the ones who run these camps. I don't run the camp, right? So if I did have Rotary and that network to support, all that I could have done is said, okay, here is the money to buy a machine, and fine, I will talk to some people. But I couldn't organize a camp, run the camp, and set ourselves a goal. So we set a goal for in 3 years we will screen at least 3,000 children, and we expect that would mean at least 10 to 15 children would be identified as needing corrective surgery, and then they would so Rotary has given me structure. Rotary, through the Rotaries, how they deal with grants. It's given me processes to adopt. Rotary is keeping me young, and I say that because my Rotary club, I am one of the few people who's probably about 60 years of age in the club. Most of my club are people in their 40s or 30s or 50s. So it keeps me young. So that's the other thing Rotary has given me. What else has, I guess it's a long list and I didn't think about it, but yeah, Rotary has given me friends. So when I came back to Bangalore after 27 years, it's these friends who've helped me. So, we call it fellowship through service. So when I got hurt, it was a Rotarian who took me at 10 o'clock at night to the Manipal hospital, and then again at 6 in the morning next day. so Rotary has given me, friends that I can count on, friends that I enjoy working with, and projects that impact many more people.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you. Just no comment. There is this perception that the government is subsidizing schools. There are government schools. There is subsidy that the government is providing. So people are not very clear as to what is the role of non-profits in this. Where do philanthropy and non-profits fit in a society? What kind of role are they playing? Can you explain a bit in your experience? What sort of gaps are they filling?
I guess what I'm going to lean on is segments of society or segments. So yes, the government is doing, but it's a broad brush, and it's not the most efficient system because of size or because of other factors, right? So NGOs have NGOs are run by people who are passionate for a cause, and they put their full energy, and as I said, you can see the impact of it. So you're closer to seeing the benefit. So this is, in fact, my when I say education is a cause, and that's what I do. So in fact, my daughter, when I would be talking about increasing our giving, so when you go from 10, 12, 20% to now this 50% or more, so this was the same. That was in certain areas like education. There are plenty of government projects and other things happening. So you don't need to, go in there. But there are, as I said, slum children in Bangalore who come from Orissa, Bihar, Assam, whatever, various parts of Northeast, and can't get into the local system, local government school. I don't think the government addresses that. They have a program saying out of school children should be back in school, but then they don't have the necessary facilities for such children to get back into the school.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm just asking, what role do philanthropists play?
My Rotary friend will tell me force multiplier. so, so philanthropists, I guess, are force multipliers. You know, they can they can they can encourage others, and they can bring more people to that to to um, to to the cause, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I have one last question for you. Why did you take the Living My Promise pledge? What motivated you? And what do you have to say to people who might be contemplating something like this?
So first question, why did I take the pledge? As I told you, I actually, maybe I didn't, so I took the pledge on Living My Promise because now it's public. Okay, earlier it was just a, pledge, as I said, within the family, you didn't talk about it much. If you now ask me, why did I do it? I did it because I thought I actually could then get more people that are my friends or family to get interested in giving more. So as I said, I know all of them give, so it's not like it's going from zero, but to give more. The third reason maybe why I did, when I know that if you have a goal and if you announce it, then you're likely to achieve that goal. So if I didn't announce it, then so the nice thing about Living My Pledge is it's a goal which says, listen, in your lifetime or in your will. So that even addresses that other question that you had about, people are concerned about what kind of medical expenses they might incur. So the thing is, it's not saying, listen, you got to do it right now and give away 50% of your money. It'd be good if you did that because you can have a significant impact. However, if you feel uncomfortable doing that, give 30, 40, whatever you can give now, and the balance can be in your will. Right? So I think, so why did I take the pledge? I took it because I thought it was time to kind of let people know, and hopefully it will therefore accelerate some people to motivate some people to step up to the plate. What was your second question? Why? And then?
Yeah, that's all. That was my question. Why did you take My Promise pledge? Yeah. And hopefully now that you mentioned that you hope to inspire a lot of others to start giving or giving more, or ideally from my end, maybe become Living My Promise pledges themselves, promises themselves. So yeah, thank you. It was a fantastic session that we had with you. It's very insightful, a lot of wisdom. I hope people enjoyed the session. So thank you once again, TV sir, for coming and taking the time on Saturday and doing the session for us.
Thank you, Sushant. Thank you very much.
Yeah. For viewers who are watching, we do this live sessions every Saturday. Next Saturday, we have another promiser who will be coming and talking about it. Please do check out www.livingmypromise.org website for more information. Thank you once again. Have a nice day.
Thanks, Sushant. Thanks. Bye-bye.